right, I'll give you a code when we're good. All right, we're live on YouTube and now we're live on Facebook. We'll just wait for the folks to come in. Let's see, we're almost live on Facebook. Having a little bit of trouble on Facebook, so for those of you tuned in via YouTube, please bear with us here. Looks like we're back on Facebook. Danni, we've got Danni tuned in already. Can you hear us, Danni?
Yes. Yes, I can. Can you?
I think so. Let's see, we've got folks streaming in. If you remember the last time we did this, I was having technical difficulties getting on YouTube, so I am excited that we are live there. And it looks like we are live still on Facebook. We've got about 8 folks tuned in. Thank you, thank you. We'll keep waiting here a little bit longer as folks kind of tune in. I sent out my text reminders, so hopefully those of you who are signed up for our text reminders received those. I don't know, some people are still on vacation for summer. What do you think, Danni? I don't know if that's...
I don't know.
I know.
It's Labor Day weekend, so as usual, we're going to be laboring on ranch here, so maybe for a lot of people.
I know, folks.
It's only Friday night.
It's only Friday night, yeah. And what better way to spend it than talking about USA beef? I think you've already sent me a few things on that, Danni, a few tweets. Folks are really getting fired up about it on Twitter. Maybe.
Yeah, it seems like the word's getting out a little bit more.
Yeah. All right, we're up to 20 folks now. Look at that. I knew you guys would be coming in. Just took a few texts and tweets to get out here. Well, welcome to USCA's Facts Only Fridays. We started this in May during the beginnings or midpoint of the coronavirus pandemic, just as a way to stay more connected with everybody and kind of offer that direct to member interaction. We've done this before. We do this with our monthly corn wrap call. So we're no stranger to this direct interaction, that's for sure. That monthly horn wrap calls on the second Tuesday of each month, and we hope to continue these Facts Only Friday, maybe not quite every week, but every other week, regularly scheduled. We've got a really neat one in the works 2 weeks from now, with hopefully some special guests from the US Senate. So stay tuned for more information on that. But tonight's a hot topic too. We're talking about made in the USA product claims, specifically the Federal Trade Commission's rulemaking that is closing soon on September 14th. And we're gonna start, we've got, the kids call it the OG, the original. We've got the OG here, Danni Beer, past president of USCA. What else have you done, Danni? You've been on the Cattlemen's Beef Board. You've represented South Dakota Farmers Union. You've represented South Dakota stock growers. I mean, quite a few.
That's enough. That's enough. Yeah, Leah, that's enough. I feel like maybe that ages me a little bit. So, yeah, Leo told me when I was about your age, I suppose, that we should get that cool thing done. And that kind of drugged me into being active in a lot of things and with a lot of cattle groups and other ag groups. So it's been fun. I like to interact with people that want to make policy in farm groups and it's been fun meeting people.
Absolutely, and that's been my draw to this whole thing too. It's fun connecting people to their policymakers to solve problems. So like the 3 Ps there, and I think we're doing a heck of a job with that, and hopefully we'll get some more folks interested in the work that we're doing tonight, for all the folks that are tuning in. But yeah, we're very excited to talk about truth in labeling, to talk about country of origin labeling, to talk about the product of the USA loophole, anything related to labeling on US beef we're going to cover tonight. I think with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Like I said, I know we're kind of still early in the season. It's summer, it's harvest for some of you are calving. So I'm sure it's a busy time for all, but these videos will be recorded and available on our Facebook and YouTube pages. So you can check it out afterwards too, if you're, not able to join us for the entire hour tonight. But, like I said, we're here with Danni Beer, South Dakota. She's past president of the U.S. Cattlemen's Association. She's been to DC probably too many times for either of us to count, working on this issue. She currently serves as our Truth in Labeling Committee co-chair, helped draft our USCA petition for rulemaking on the product of USA, made in the USA label. And so what we'd like to do for this first part of the night, we'll get to questions later, so save them for when the Q&A session hits. But for the first part, we'd really like to do a historical analysis, give some historical context to what's happening now with the Made in the USA rulemaking that the Federal Trade Commission's put out, because we're kind of getting to a point where this is all going to culminate, and we're either going to make progress or we're going to be kind of stuck in the history and in the past and kind of unable to find a pathway forward here. So without further ado, Danni, start us off tonight. Where do we start here in the country of origin labeling discussion?
Okay, well, I will go back to the pre-cool era, which in my estimation would be like 1998, 9, somewhere in there, that we talked about it as country of origin labeling. And that was a really big mouthful. And everybody was into acronyms anyway, so we just said, let's call it cool and go with that. So about that time, Tim Johnson was a senator in South Dakota, and he kind of took a liking to that idea. And we looked at first thing his office came up with is, well, why don't we just restrict the USDA quality grade? And they kind of tossed that around, and they thought it would be better to go with just a small label that gave consumers information straightforward. You're not promoting your product, you're not doing anything except differentiating. It's just information. And so we moved forward with that. And so this is Facts Only Friday. So we will go through a little historical timeline. So if you did not like history in high school, and you might find the WTO process boring, you might want to tune out for 10 minutes. Go to the fridge and grab a beer, okay? But it started in 2002 when COOL was enacted in the Farm Bill, as it amended the AMS Act, the Act of 1946. So it required retailers to notify consumers of the country of origin through a label. That's all it said. Didn't say how to do it, didn't say what to do. Is they left the USDA to write the rules. So 2003, USDA writes rules and has comment periods. Okay, and we're going to talk about comment periods later on with a new agency called the FTC. So stay tuned for that. Then in 2004, Congress delays COOL for meat, but not fish and shellfish. They let that go forward. And in the meantime, USDA asks for costs associated with the rule and wants input from everybody in the comments. So in 2005, Congress again delays COOL until September 30th of 2008. In the meantime, the AMS reopens an interim final COOL rule for 90 days, requesting cost and benefit information for this interim rule that they put forward. 2007, we've got more comment periods and on the 2003 rule, and it kind of flops back and forth there. May of 2008, we get a new farm bill coming out, and it further amends cool by adding commodities. Interestingly enough, it was so hard for it at first, you know, in the arguments going forward. This is not factual, but the other side that didn't want cool, they claimed that it was going to cost too much and it was impossible to do. So in that regard, these same companies wanted they wanted chickens and goats and some nuts labeled as well. So that was kind of interesting, but they got it in there. And they also clarified the production steps. So they put in there where the animal is born, raised, and processed at would be important. So, you know, in essence, giving the consumer more information was a good thing. August of 2008, they had an effective date for the interim final rule. Then 2009, January 2009, AMS published a final cool rule to go into effect on March 16th of 2009. So we are started with cool then. June 5th of the same year, Canada holds consultations with the US to resolve cool differences. So they met outside the WTO, they met to resolve their differences. They couldn't, so in October of 2009, Canada requests WTO to have a dispute panel on its complaint. Mexico follows 2 days later. November of 2011, the WTO final report concludes, some features of cool discriminate against foreign livestock. So March 2012, the US appeals that. Canada and Mexico also appeal some conclusions. In June, the appellate body issues a report upholding the dispute panel's decision. December of 2012, the US is given 10 months to implement the dispute panel and appellate body's recommendations. So that means USDA has to go back and rewrite things so it's WTO approved. So USDA does propose a modified cool rule to meet the WTO findings and improve the cool program in March of 13. That is a long time. We started this in 2002 and we're only up to 2013, and we still, you know, it's still pretty tough to find labels on things, but it's happening some. It's starting to happen more and more in the stores. We're starting to see it. So May 23rd, there's a deadline for the US to comply with the findings. And on May 24th, the US notifies the dispute settlement body that it has complied with the WTO findings. And no compliance proceedings were initiated by Canada and Mexico then. But on June 7th, Canada releases an itemized tariff list that could be targeted. And that made headlines all over. If you look up cool, you'll probably find that tariff list somewhere. It was pretty dramatic in the public. They were gonna put tariffs on wine and all kinds of different things. So that really got a lot of people up in arms about it for obvious reasons. August 19th of 2013, Canada and Mexico notified the dispute settlement body that they request the establishment of a compliance panel at the August 30th meeting. This is only 10 days later, so things are happening pretty fast. August 30th, the US objects to the request but can't object a second time, so our hands are getting tied. September 27th, the same members that served on the dispute settlement panel are then selected for this compliance panel. So the compliance panel hears the cool case in February 14. October 20th of the same year, WTO compliance panel releases the report and gives the US 60 days to appeal it. On November 28th, the US appeals. February 16th and 17th, the appellate body hears the compliance report and they basically adopt it in May. And in June, Canada and Mexico are requesting authority to retaliate against the US with major damages of $204 billion from Canada and $653 million from Mexico. And the US is left to object. And in that time frame, June 10th of 2015 is when the House voted to repeal cool. There was just so much pressure on Congress to adhere to the WTO expectations. And the only thing that was left was when the House did that, Senator Hoban from North Dakota introduced Senate Bill 1844 that repealed COOL for beef, pork, and chicken, but it also created at the same time a voluntary program with a born, raised, and processed definition for labeling U.S. beef. So going back 5 years to his idea is where we're trying to get to again, basically with a definition of U.S. beef. What is U.S. beef? So beyond that, the only other thing that came out of the WTO finishing up was that the retaliation level for Canada was placed at 1.055 billion and Mexico 228 million. So that was what they thought was costing those nations to have COOL. I'm curious what it costs U.S. producers not to have COOL since that time. I think that is a minute portion of what it is probably costing beef producers all over the world for not having a definition of U.S. beef right now.
Agree. And
that's
I think that's
a brief history of the WTO. Then at the same time.
Oh, I was just going to say the graph behind you would be a great beginner's look at what exactly it is costing the industry. So you've got right behind Danny, a terrible graph, if I may. It doesn't show, it shows prices going up, it shows a repeal, it shows prices going way down.
Yeah. And, you know, not saying there are other factors in that. Obviously, there's other factors that affect the price of beef, the price of cattle, all of that. But at the same time, I think it's fact that COOL did not negatively affect the price of cattle. And that's what we were continually told before that happened. So fact, it did not. At the same time, the WTO case was going on. I think it's very interesting that a domestic lawsuit was filed at the in 2013. I think in 2013, they were starting to have to label and really getting desperate. So they filed a domestic lawsuit. That was filed by AMI, NAMA, the North American Meat Association, the Canadian Cattlemen, and NCBA. And there was a few other plaintiffs too. But throughout that process, their injunction was denied. They lost their free speech argument and that their free speech was not violated. And then, what do I want to mention about that? Yeah, they just never got anywhere with that lawsuit. So it was long and a lot of fighting there too, but it was pretty fast actually. July 8th is when it was filed, and October 31st, the petition was totally rejected. So that's a little history on that, the domestic one. I thought it was cool because our own court found it totally legal. So.
Sorry guys, I mute myself because I've got a dog here who's just, you know, he can get a little feisty, but I see we've got a few folks back from the fridge already grabbing their beer. So for those of you who are, get ready for what's happening now on Capitol Hill. We're up to about 30 or so visitors this evening. So thank you for spending your Friday night with us. Again, this is Facts Only Friday. If you're just joining, we're talking about the Made in the USA product claims on US beef. So things moved rather slowly, Danny. You said from 2002 to 2013. We were just kind of debating whether or not we had a program.
And then when it went away, then there was a real lull in action after the WTO case went away. So then the next thing, I mean, we were constantly looking for ways to get information to consumers, like really felt that piece was missing. And then without a definition of US beef, we felt more vulnerable. And still you saw US beef on packages, but you knew there was no meaning behind it. You know, a few of us ranchers did, I think. And that was really frustrating and still is really frustrating. And I think the COVID situation probably brought it to a forefront more than anything we've done. But in the meantime, before it was out in the general public, U.S. Cattlemen's and some other groups too. We were petitioning USDA at different levels. Can you explain that a little bit, Leah?
Yes. So as we get more into the recent history, and I brought this book out and I forgot to mention it at the beginning, so I'm going to mention it now. We've got this ginormous book called Setting the Record Straight with our Mr. Leo McDonnell, our Director Emeritus, on here. It's supposed to be his book, but Danny, you're in here quite a bit. And country of origin labeling seems to be one of the big issues. So you can see we've been working on this a long time. You can see how old this book is. It's worn down. You know, I keep it right next to my desk for historical reference. But as we talk about what's happening now, since 2015, that is coincidentally when I came on into this role as well. So I've got to deal with kind of the aftermath of all of this. And what we've been doing since then is really working any congressional angle possible. But while we're working the legislative angle, because we have heard from our sister organization that coal is, dead in the water. I think there's a direct quote out there, if you look hard enough, that coal should go back into the grave where it belongs. So on the legislative side, we are up against a mountain, an absolute mountain of PAC money, of big DC influence. If we could get all of us producers in line and have a real grassroots revolution on this issue, I think we could see some movement. But because the industry is already so difficult to unite, I'm not so sure that the legislative pathway is going to be the pathway forward. But while we've been working on these congressional solutions, in the background, we've been pursuing administrative actions. And one of those, we submitted a petition for rulemaking to USDA's Food Safety Inspection Service in October of 2019. And what that rulemaking said was that this product of USA loophole, we've talked about it so many times, but if you are new and just joining us tonight, the product of USA loophole is when one of the big four meat packers import product into our country. They can bring that product in, they can have it undergo a significant transformation within our borders, which is sticking a knife in it, which is rewrapping it, repackaging it, anything that changes it from like the raw product into something that can be sent to retail. So once that significant transformation happens, that's kind of the point. It's now a product of the USA. And that's in place because we lost mandatory country of origin labeling. We lost it. It was pulled straight from the books. If we had had that voluntary country of origin labeling program, we could have maintained the definition of US beef at Food Safety Inspection Service, and we wouldn't have lost going on 5, 6, how many years of mislabeled beef at this point. So what we're looking at now is closing this product of the USA loophole. And actually, I'll share these petitions in the comments on both Facebook and YouTube, so you can check them out. You can see USCA's petition for rulemaking that we submitted. And we didn't do this alone, of course. I don't want to take too much credit. The Organization for Competitive Markets and the American Grass-Fed Association also submitted similar petitions. Between the two of our groups, I think they received something like 12,000 public comments in support of the petition. I don't know if they were all in support, but a vast majority were in support. And so FSIS took those petitions, they looked at them, and you know what they said? Believe it or not, they said, yes, this loophole exists. Yes, this is a problem. Yes, it could be happening. We're not so keen on the fix that they've recommended. They've recommended saving the US beef definition for product that is raised and processed here, not born here. So we'd like to see all three of those covered, the born, raised, and processed. USDA Food Safety Inspection Service is recommending, they haven't announced it officially, but they're recommending that product of USA refer to beef that is raised and processed in the USA. But it was a huge win when they admitted this, right? Because from the point prior to that, it wasn't speculation. We knew it was happening, but nobody had publicly admitted it. So we've got that public admission now in a letter in response to our petition, which, kudos to all of our board members. Thank you, Danni, everyone who went out and fundraised, who spent time on that petition. we got an actual result out of it, which is something you don't see. I guess the effort doesn't always equal the result in Congress. You know, you could put a lot of effort into something and not see it go anywhere. But on the administrative side, we put a lot of effort into something and we saw a result. So I'm going to share that now. Danni, what am I missing here? Where does that take us? Anything else on that petition? I'm going to drop it in the comment.
Well, I think bringing that petition up probably made some other people take notice of it too, because didn't we have some bills introduced on the Hill then that kind of mimicked our language of the petition or some of the other petitions that were given? And absolutely give credit to the other groups that, you know, we were all thinking the same thing and had a little different angle at it, but it all addresses the same issue. So that was kind of cool, but there were some senators, and you'll know which ones off the tip of your tongue. So you go ahead and list those off, please.
Sure, yes. So Senators Tester and Senators Rounds have been attacking this issue from every single direction, every single angle. They're really serving as our congressional champions on this issue. And I'm looking down because I'm trying to get you guys FSIS's response to USCA's petition. But we had a bill introduced that mimicked our Product of USA petition, and then we had another bill on country of origin labeling. So it's an all-in approach. We are not dismissing any pathway forward. We are going forth with anything that anyone might think is prosperous, because it's going to take everybody, it's going to take every angle, it's going to take every pathway forward. And I guess that kind of brings us, I want to leave some time for questions, but that brings us to where we are, or why we're here tonight, which is the Federal Commission's Made in the USA rulemaking. And Danni, did you want to start us off here, or do you want me to tackle it? I might use you for some questions. So
sure. Well, okay, sure, go ahead. I'll just start. The FTC said that they intend to open a comment period on Product of the USA claims. So thanks to the petition for the rulemaking submission by the U.S. Cattlemen's, the Organization of Competitive Markets, and the American Grass-Fed Association. So in response to those petitions, which would reserve the Product of the USA label exclusively for cattle that have been born, raised, and harvested in the USA, USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service, the FSIS, noted that the loophole outlined above does exist with potential for misleading labels and recommended the following changes. So the agency has determined that a voluntary U.S. meat product origin labeling policy that focuses on where the product is made, where the livestock are slaughtered and processed without regard to where the source animals were born, may more accurately reflect what origin means with respect to meat products processed in the United States, and will thus result in labels that are truthful and not misleading. I think that statement totally contradicts itself, because what is truthful and not misleading about leaving out the part where the animal is born? So the FTC must kind of have a few questions about that of their own. So I'll be interested going forward to see what they're asking. But now the FTC is wanting to get into the conversation and see what's going on. So they are asking for public comments to support a review of the Made in the USA program. Now, let me remind you that in some of these other comment periods, USDA has changed their position because of the comments received, because the processing part of the industry that doesn't want to tell people the origin of the products is pretty good about getting comments in, and pretty hefty comments. So numbers wise, if your household has a couple members, probably each of you should be making comments. It might be a huge help for this issue.
Absolutely. And you might see me looking down again, just trying to get into the comments here to see. We've got some good questions already, which is good. And we're fluctuating on viewers. I don't know if you guys are getting many beers out of the fridge, as Danni suggested, or what, but stick around, because the question and answer session is coming. But yeah, so where we're at now is this Federal Trade Commission rulemaking. What they're asking for, what the Federal Trade Commission or the FTC is asking for, is any, well, I guess first, they published this notice of proposed rulemaking. So the notice of proposed rulemaking is what you would actually be commenting on. And what that proposed rulemaking notice asks or says, it covers labels on products that are making unqualified made in the USA claims. So it specifically states that it is prohibited for marketers to include made in the USA claims on labels unless, and there's 3 points here, unless their product meets all 3 of these points, they cannot use the made in the USA label. Point 1 is that final assembly or processing of the product occurs in the United States. So, I mean, that's the product USA loophole now, but points 2 says that all significant processing that goes into the product occurs in the United States, okay? And number 3 is that all or virtually all ingredients or components of the product are made and sourced in the United States. So that is the key one. Number 3 there is that that virtually all clause. And this was in our petition for rulemaking to FSIS. It's something that we cited right there. So I guess optimistically, we'd like to think that the FTC read our petition and pulled that out of there and used it to set up this notice of proposed rulemaking. But what they're looking for, and these comments are due September 14th. So you've got 10 days to really think about this and submit your own set of comments. But what they're looking for are any existing statutes, rules, or policies that may conflict with this proposal. So we already know one, the product of the USA loophole, that's going to conflict with their definition of made in the USA claims. So we'll be sending out our talking points, so it'll be super easy for you to make your comments. But I do want to suggest that you take some time to read through the notice, and it's linked in the comments there. But obviously, unique original comments are going to hold more weight than form comments. So we can give you all the talking points, but if you come up with something on your own, it's going to hold more weight when they go to review those comments. But what are the main points here? And then we'll get into questions. The main points are that the FTC wants to strengthen these made in the USA labeling requirements to reserve that USA label only for products that have that virtually all ingredients sourced in the United States. So again, that's the key clause, the all or virtually all ingredients. Number 2 of these main points here, under current FSIS rules, we have that product of the USA loophole. So we've got 2 conflicting messages here by 2 federal agencies. And that sets up a conflict between the two, between USDA and FTC. The FTC wants to ensure that only products made in the USA bear that label, while the USDA policy currently states that a foreign beef product can enter the USA and is subject only to minor processing. But that's only currently, because the USDA did look at our petition for rulemaking and say, yes, we need some changes here, and we're going to be making those changes. So huge win for this issue is that the FSIS admitted that, and you know, what we're looking at now, this proposed rulemaking, it's going to set that conflict up between USDA and the FTC, which the FTC's definition right now is what we're leaning towards. Danny, did I miss anything? We've got comments lining up the door, which I love.
Oh, well, let's go ahead and get to comments then, or questions. That'd be fun.
Comments, questions. All right. You guys heard her. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just think it's another opportunity to comment. I've heard from a number of people that go to a grocery store and say, well, it's still labeled. It's labeled. And if there's not a program behind that label, then it doesn't have any meaning, or it's misleading information, or can be. So it's something that needs to be addressed. And I think we're getting there, to the point of getting it addressed. So
we're getting there. Okay, so this is a comment that I just want to throw out there. It's not a question, it's a comment. But Byron would love to know where you're coming in from. Drop it in the comments here. But Byron says, I went on a trip to visit my representatives in DC in February of 2015. We met with the NCBA, and they were urging us to push for repeal of COOL due to the WTO retaliation. I would love to do that trip over again. And I think this sentiment would be shared by many producers. A lot of times when you're in those organizations, you just get like a set of talking points shoved at you and sent on your way, sent into meetings without really understanding what's going on or what's happening. We hope through these Facts Only Friday that you don't feel that way at USCA, that we're very clearly outlining the issues and letting you kind of make your own stance on where you fall on it. And, you know, I just want to say thank you, Byron, for sharing that. Any reflections there, Danni?
I love it. A cattleman that can think for himself. That's perfect. Thank you. Take another trip to DC. Really take another one. It's imperative that people go out as soon as you can, or virtually, I guess. Maybe you have to do it virtually now, like we're doing.
I know this is a lot of screen time for me, but all right, Johnny Weaver, you've got our top fan badge. You're always commenting on our page. We really appreciate the engagement from your end. But Johnny Weaver asks, why don't they go after Mexico and leave Canada alone? Since the WTO only awarded Mexico the ability to impose only $200 million in tariffs. So why aren't we going after Mexico and not Canada? Why can't we split the bill or split the ticket and just ban one over the other? What do you think, Danni? What would you say to that?
I don't know. It was filed as one case or one suit, so I don't know if that was a possibility. I think it was more of a light treatment because it said that it was discriminating against their cattle. So in that, I don't know if it would matter if we could take on one or not, but that wasn't really our decision either. That was administrative decision to go after or not, or to accept the WTO's ruling. They just did. So.
And Canada's holding their good friend close. I don't think they'd be willing to let that happen or settle, but certainly something worth exploring, Johnny. Johnny also said, we're just going to cover our top fan, Johnny's comments here. It is also my understanding that Trump has intentionally not appointed a USA candidate to the WTO appeals court. This leaves the door open for challenge. So what do we got to say about the WTO, Danni? It's certainly interesting times. And yeah, the president has not done that yet.
There's a lot of interesting things I've read about the WTO process lately. Terry Stewart has done a really wonderful job of writing in his retirement. He did represent or help us cattle producers in that case, and he has put together a lot of really thoughtful information on the whole process of the appellate body and the panels that disputes are handled with, and how lengthy that process was. If you heard me go through the history, if you didn't take a break or several drinks, then you heard how long of a process it was to get to that result. So yeah, that's good to know, but I don't know what the answer is. I'm not that versed on the WTO process. That was my only experience with it, and I hope I don't have to deal with that again in my lifetime.
Amen. Cheers to that. But yeah, no. Thanks for pointing that out, Johnny. And I hope other folks can look at that and do some more researching on it. But let's go here.
Maybe
Andrew,
I should rephrase that, Leah. Can I rephrase that? Young people probably need to be more open. Yeah, young people like your age, Leah, and younger ranchers probably need to get themselves more well-versed in the WTO process, because there's probably things we could be doing if money and time were not objects in the normal ranching life, U.S. rancher life. So yeah, somebody's got an interest and an act to dig into things there that could be done to help our industry. Go for it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would love to see some more young producers join the ranks, but we do have at least one new young producer coming in from North Carolina. Andrew, Rector, who asks, in the cool ruling dated May 23rd, 2013, so that's May 23rd, 2013, the cool ruling, he said, it's my understanding that cool was brought into WTO compliance on in November of 2013. If that's true, then why was it repealed? So maybe we talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. It was what USDA came up with as a plan of putting cool in place, or the rule, and they thought it would be in compliance with what WTO was asking for. And so they put that plan forward to WTO, and then later on they ruled, no, still not good enough. We're throwing it out anyway. A lot of it was, and like I said, Terry Stewart really makes a good summary of everything, but a lot of the times the people they put on these what did I call them, dispute panels, don't understand the industry. Like, I mean, just like, it'd be like putting me in the computer, on a computer board or something, a dispute panel. I have no clue. I can barely run Zoom, hey? So that's the best answer I can come up with on that.
All right, we'll have to look into that a little bit more for you, Andrew. But we're I guess, and if you haven't heard Terry Stewart talk yet, he is almost always a guest speaker at our cattle producers forums because he does such great deep dives into these wonky trade topics. And obviously, I can't really advocate for anybody to come travel because we're not traveling right now with COVID. But when we do start again, the importance of going to all of these meetings, certainly. It looks like our next comment here, Wade Hatcher from Tennessee. He asks, why won't RCAF support our efforts, being as we are making some headway? I would hope that we would support them if and when they made headway using the legal system. I'll take this first, Danny, and then I'll bop it to you. The good news is on this Made in the USA rulemaking from the Federal Trade Commission, RCAF's right there with us, OCM's right there with us, Farmers Union is right there with us. And that's great news because we are going to inundate the FTC rulemaking or Federal Register system with public comments in support of this rule. So it's great news. But Danny, maybe you want to add anything else there?
Yeah, it's long overdue for us to get along and work toward a common goal. I think we all have the same goal, and it's from outside the industry, people they don't care if we're fighting and have infighting. Nobody cares, so stop. It's not worth it. So all of our energy needs to be put forward in solving the problems in front of us and taking the challenges as they come. And this one's a great opportunity to work together. So hopefully we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're always here ready and willing to collaborate on really anything that's going to kind of advance the cattle markets here. So if anyone from RCAF's listening, reach out to any of our board members, leadership, me, Jess, Kelly, we're here, we're listening, we're ready. But we'll go to the comment period or the comments section again here. We've got another young producer, Danny, they're coming in. They heard you were live. Michael Peter from Montana asks, doesn't the term sourced leave room for a loophole to add another layer in the supply chain? So if you allow a domestic corporation to buy foreign cattle in wholesale to the big four, does that skirt them in sourcing U.S. beef? It's very interesting comment there.
Leah, I didn't catch that. My internet was hanging up.
That's okay. I've been kind of, it gives me warnings that your bandwidth might be a little bit low. So I understand, we've been watching that. But so Michael Peter from Montana, he brings up a great point. When we're looking at USDA's response to our petition for rulemaking, and when they say that they want to see the product of USA definition be reserved for beef product that's sourced and processed in the USA, could there be corporations that skirt that rule? I think there could be. So we're going to have to be really careful in our comments and making sure that we have airtight definitions really kind of the most airtight of definitions is that born, raised, and harvested in the USA. So we will not back down from that. And we'll be pushing for that sort of definition to be included. But when we look at the definitions that the agencies propose, we do have to be super, super careful with some of these terms. So good point, Michael. Appreciate the comment there. All right, we've got a U.S. consumer in here, Zol Hart. Zol Hart, thank you for joining, who says, as a U.S. consumer, this country has completely dismissed my right as a citizen to know where my beef originated. I am mortified how insignificant the government thinks U.S. citizens are. They have removed the human element from the beef production sector. So I guess that's a comment more than a question there, Danny, but I would have to 100% agree.
Hey, Leah, that brings up something I've been pretty concerned about, and so have some other people at U.S. Cattlemen. So we, Leah probably helped put this letter together, and I really, really like the letter, but it's bringing attention to the fact that recently there was 54 people in Mexico that got ill, and if they traced it back to clenbuterol. Clenbuterol is something, an agent that's a beta antagonist, and it can be a food additive, but it's been banned in the United States for a long time, I think. Is that right? And I don't know, we don't use it here, but people got sick from it in Mexico, and it was in the beef. That's what is really scary for me, that our standards are high in the United States. Our standards are high. Mm-hmm. So let's not give up that U.S. beef label on something that might not be as safe and as high standards as what we're used to, and our customers are used to.
No, exactly. And for those of you tuning in, special treat, that's a sneak peek of what's to come next week. Our USCA Animal Health and Trade Committees have been working on a letter to USDA leadership on this beta-agonist additive. It's an illegal practice in the US and Europe. It sickened 54 people in the country just this year. And it's an ongoing issue for Mexico. In 2016, the National Football League, the NFL, had issued a warning to their players saying, if you're going to go to Mexico, don't eat the red meat because you are going to test positive in our, performance enhancing drug tests. I'm not quite sure what they're called, but this is an ongoing issue. Even more concerning is that Mexico exports 86% of its beef supply to the United States. So all of that beef, all of that contaminated beef is coming right into our borders, and it can essentially be lost with this product of the USA loophole, because you get that USA stamp and you are on your way to the retail stores. So certainly concerning, and something that you'll see us make a comment on next week. Good point there. Good point there, Danny. I'm not seeing any more comments come in. I know it's getting late on a Friday here. What do we got, Danny? What do we want people to walk away from tonight's session thinking about?
Well, certainly, I want to know people that are used to making comments on the USDA website. It's kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it'll be kind of the same process over at the FTC. You'll just go into regulations. Is it regulations.gov? I think is the website thing, and I'm sure U.S. Cattlemen's will have links out, and a lot of other groups that support this will probably have links out. So whatever you find and get time to do it, it doesn't have to be long. It just has to say the right thing. And a born, raised, and processed product is the only thing that should get the U.S. label, is kind of the gist of what you want to say there, or the product of USA label is the way they put it over there.
Exactly. Your call to action tonight, the reason you watch this go on for about an hour. That deadline's coming up, September 14th. We're trying to hoorah all of our members into submitting comments. We'll be sending out notices. We'll be sending out talking points. We'll be sending out links in the days ahead. So stay tuned, keep your eyes and ears open for those. If you are not a member of USCA, you probably won't be receiving those. So make sure to head on over to our website, uscattleman.org. You can also find, and Danny's gonna love this, we're gonna do a little screen share tonight because I want to share our new apparel store here. So let's see here. So what you do, you go to our website, you click our store here, and you're brought to this amazing storefront where you can show your support for US beef through a number of apparel items here. Look, we've got a face mask now for those of you who are looking to put your money where your mouth is. We've got Demand USA beef. We've got for the next generation, a Future Rancher t-shirt for the young ones. We've got, and these three right here were the result of a design contest.
Nice, I like
Some
it.
winners here.
That's great, Leah.
Yes, from USCA members, those designs were submitted. So head on over to that website, become a member, buy some gear. Otherwise, you might not get the notice for all of these comments, suggestions. We have one more follow-up question, which I would love to answer here. Andrew asks again, thank you for the answer. I've been told that any policy that my county or state level puts forth that has the verbiage mandated or country of origin will not even be considered in resolution. So this sounds like a policymaking process, and Andrew's trying to navigate a policymaking process maybe at an organization. And he asked any tips on how to handle this. So we say this a lot, change comes from within. If you want to make a difference, go out there, have your voice heard. But what happens when you arrive at these county or state meetings and your voice isn't being heard? What sort of advice do you have for that person, Danny?
Well, I don't think any of what we talked about with the FTC has the word mandatory or anything in it. So great opportunity for you to take that. And I guess if I don't know, I can't speak for your local group. I don't know your situation, but grassroots is probably the best method we have right now. So good luck to you and your organization.
Got to keep trying. I don't want to say it feels like banging your head against the wall, but you're going to have to keep doing it until something happens, because it's just going to take time and time again. There's we're, like I said earlier in this video, we're up against a mountain of influence, PAC money, all sorts of barriers in our way. But to have that grassroots moment, to have that grassroots momentum, these are the things that are going to break those barriers down. And this is a good example, all of you guys coming together tonight to listen to us for a little bit and hopefully, come away with some new information. And Whitney Klasna here says, join USCA and you can join our policy committees on trade and truth and labeling. So yeah, a good call there. If you sign up tonight, you can email me. We can get you on any one of these committees. We can start talking about these issues and really make some change going forward here. So
yeah, you can bring up, I think our committees are all open to any words. We don't say, no, you can't use any of those words in our policy. We're pretty open, except fake meat. I don't know if I'd let you use the, like, if you're gonna promote fake meat or something, I'd probably have a problem with that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of words for fake meat. That's another Facebook Facts Only Friday debate for sure. But that's another issue that the Truth in Labeling Committee tackles. And Danny's actually been to DC to testify in front of the FDA and the USDA on this. So it's another issue that the Truth in Labeling Committee tackles and that you can help us tackle if you join and sign up for one of these committees. I don't know, we might let folks go a little bit early tonight. It looks like we're kind of all tapped out on our questions here, which is fine. If you've got an idea for another Facts Only Friday, we'd love to hear it. Like I said, we're working on doing another one here in a few weeks, hopefully with some special guests from the US Senate. fingers crossed. But if not, of course, there are many other options, many other topics to discuss. And with that, Danni, any closing thoughts? And then I think we're gonna call it a good night.
I think Leah, my internet is just about asleep. I had better just say thanks for having me on, and I hope people comment on the FTC comment period before September 14th, please.
That's it. That's the call to action. And like I said, we'll put that information out in the days ahead, but Danni's internet is cutting out, and I think the basketball game just clicked on in my house, so my internet might click out here too. But with that, thank you guys all for joining, and we'll talk to you all next time on